Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into the world of Frida Kahlo.
Oh, Frida Kahlo.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've got some excerpts from her Wikipedia page
Okay.
covering a lot of, her life, her art.
Yeah, her tumultuous life.
Yeah.
And her amazing artwork.
Exactly.
Like, they go together, don't they?
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other with Frida.
Yeah, and so today I really want to kind of get into
Yeah.
Frida beyond the kind of the surface level, right?
Right.
Like I think everybody knows
Eyebrows.
the unibrow, the flowers in her hair, the self-portraits.
The self-portraits, yeah.
But like what was her art really about?
Right, and I think it's important to remember that she was more than just a painter of pain.
Yes.
Which is kind of how she's often portrayed.
Right, like all the hardships in her life.
Right.
But how did that kind of manifest in her artwork?
Yeah.
Beyond just she was in pain, so she painted about pain.
Exactly, and it's fascinating how her work speaks to bigger issues.
Yeah.
Of identity, gender, colonialism, all these things that were going on.
And I think it's interesting too because even her artistic style was like a political statement in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Unless she was
her embrace of retablos.
Oh yeah.
Which are those small devotional paintings, the ones that are traditionally used in Mexican folk art.
Yeah.
That was a direct challenge to the dominant muralist movement.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So she's already pushing boundaries right from the beginning.
Yeah, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
but let's go back even further before we
Sure.
get into the intricacies of her style and everything. I think a good place to start is the bus accident
Right. The bus
when she was 18 years old.
so young,
Yeah.
18 years old, and her life changes completely.
Yeah, she had
Horrific accident.
lifelong pain from that.
Yeah. Lifelong pain. And it really shattered her dreams of becoming a doctor.
Yeah.
And so she was, bedridden in isolation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this artistic journey begins.
Yeah, and I've always wondered,
Yeah.
so how did the accident, I mean, everybody says, kind of led her to painting,
Right.
but was it purely therapeutic or was it
I think
something more than that?
I think it's really complex, the interplay of factors.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, painting did give her an outlet.
Okay.
For the suffering, the physical and emotional suffering that she was going through.
Uh-huh.
It allowed her to express the things she couldn't put into words.
Okay.
But beyond the purely therapeutic aspect of it,
Yeah.
it's like the accident forced her to confront her own mortality,
Oh, wow.
her own vulnerability.
So it wasn't just the physical pain.
No, it was
Right.
it was this existential crisis almost.
Yeah.
Of what is life? What is death? The fragility of the human body.
Right.
And those themes, they became so central to her work.
And even you see that
Yeah.
in those early paintings, the
Mhm.
ones of her family and friends.
Yeah.
There's already hints of that, right?
Right. You can see
Yeah.
it. You can see influences from European masters like
Mhm.
Botticelli, even hints of Cubism.
Oh, wow.
But you can also see that focus on the inner world of her subjects.
Yeah.
It's almost like a foreshadowing of what her self-portraits would become.
Right. And that's a good point because she did so many self-portraits.
Right, over 55.
And it's not just self-expression, is it?
It's definitely not just self-expression.
I feel like
It's social commentary.
Yeah, there's a message there.
Totally.
And, you can't talk about Frida without talking about
The unibrow.
the unibrow and the Tijuana clothing and how that all played into it.
Right, and it was all very deliberate.
Yeah.
By embracing features that were considered, unfeminine by Western standards.
Right.
She was really challenging the colonial gaze.
And reclaiming her indigenous heritage.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, it was a powerful statement.
So it wasn't just about
No.
I'm not going to pluck my eyebrows. It was
It was way more than that.
there was deeper meaning there.
Yeah, it was tied to her sense of Mexicanidad.
Okay, now Mexicanidad, now that's a complex concept.
It is a complex concept, but essentially it's this feeling of national identity that emerged after the Mexican Revolution.
Okay.
And it really emphasized rejecting European cultural dominance.
Okay.
And celebrating indigenous roots.
So she's like, I'm Mexican, and this is what it means to me.
Exactly. And she's wearing the clothing of the Tijuana women.
Right, which was
a matriarchal society in indigenous Mexico.
Wow, okay, so it was.
So it was a very conscious choice to align herself with the strength and resilience of indigenous women.
Yeah.
And to challenge those patriarchal structures that existed in Mexico.
So her art was already so intertwined with,
Oh, yeah.
the social and political.
Absolutely. It wasn't happening in a vacuum.
So how did, like,
Yeah.
she's doing all this in Mexico. Like, how is the European art world, like,
Yeah.
reacting to her?
Well, the surrealists loved her.
For
Yeah, especially Andre Breton.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, this is surrealism.
Yeah.
This is it.
Because it's like dreamlike subconscious.
Dreamlike imagery, exploring the subconscious.
Yeah.
That's what he saw in her work.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, no.
She hated that, right?
She rejected that label completely.
Because she thought it was like bourgeois.
Too bourgeois, not for the people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing to remember about Kahlo's art.
Okay.
Is that while she uses those dreamlike images, those surreal images, it's always grounded in her Mexican identity, in indigenous mythology, and her own personal experience.
Right.
She wasn't trying to fit into a European mold.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to do my own thing.
Exactly. She's forging her own path.
Yeah, and this is where Diego comes into play too, right?
Right, Diego Rivera.
Because they spent some time in Cuernavaca.
Yes, Cuernavaca.
During the Mexican Civil War.
That's right.
And how did that...
And Cuernavaca, which is like
Yeah.
this city steeped in history.
Yeah.
It was kind of a turning point for her.
Oh, really?
It ignited this even stronger sense of Mexicanidad.
Wow.
And you can see it in the colors and symbols of her paintings from that period.
So instead of like following in Diego's footsteps and painting like these big murals,
Right.
she kind of went the opposite direction.
She did. She embraced the retablo style.
Yeah.
You know, those small, very personal works,
Yeah.
often depicting like religious narratives, personal stories.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm going to...
So again, she's aligning herself with this tradition that's rooted in Mexican folk culture.
Right.
And she's differentiating herself from the more, official art of the muralists.
Right. It's amazing how, like, all of her artistic decisions are just so intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
With her personal and political...
It's all connected.
Yeah. So we've got a woman who's already, like, challenging artistic norms, societal expectations.
Right.
And even, like, her own husband's legacy, in a way.
Exactly. And it's only going to get more interesting as we delve deeper into her world.
All right. So let's get into those symbols and themes, because I think those are really important to understanding her work.
They're the key.
So we'll do that in the next part of our deep dive. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're talking all about Frida Kahlo, and I'm really excited to get into the symbolism in her work.
Yes, the symbols.
Because it's like a whole nother...
They're everywhere.
It's like a whole language, right?
Yeah, it's like a secret code almost that you have to decipher.
To understand what she's really saying.
Exactly.
So let's start with...
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, but like one that really jumps out at me is those root images.
Oh, yeah. The roots.
They're all over her paintings.
Uh-huh.
But they seem to have like different meanings depending on...
It depends on the painting, right?
Yeah, like sometimes it seems like they're like grounding her.
Yeah, like connected to the earth.
Yeah.
Representing like strength, growth.
But then in other paintings, it's like...
Right. But then sometimes they're binding her.
Yeah, they're holding her back.
Like she's trapped by them.
And I think that's interesting.
It's the duality.
Yeah, like the same symbol.
Which she loves.
Can mean different things.
Yes.
Okay, another motif we have to talk about is the medical imagery.
Oh, yes.
The blood, the bones...
It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's not easy to look at sometimes.
But it's obviously...
But there's a reason for it.
It's more than just...
It's not just shock value.
It's more than just like, oh, she was in pain.
It's about so much more than that. It's about the female body. It's about vulnerability.
Okay.
It's about the expectations placed upon women,
So she's using her own experience to kind of talk about like...
To make a broader statement.
The female experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that ties in with the Tijuana clothing as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because she's like...
That was such a powerful statement.
I'm going to embrace this part of myself.
Yeah, like the colors, the headdresses.
Yeah.
Aligning herself with these strong matriarchal traditions.
Right. And I remember you said the Chicano movement really...
Oh, they loved her.
Embraced that.
Yeah, they saw her as the symbol of cultural pride, resistance.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible how her work is just...
It transcended borders.
There's so many different people.
Yeah, because it speaks to these universal human experiences. You know, pain, love, betrayal, resilience.
Yeah, like, even though she's, like, rooted in her Mexican identity, anybody can connect with those themes.
And you see that so clearly in some of her most famous paintings.
Yeah.
Like, the two Fridas.
Okay, the two Fridas.
That image of duality, right?
Yeah, like she's literally showing the two sides of herself.
Yeah, the indigenous Frida, the European Frida.
And they're like connected by that artery.
That single artery, their hearts exposed,
Yeah.
almost touching.
Yeah, what do you think that represents?
I mean, it's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to the interconnectedness of these different parts of her identity.
Right.
But those exposed hearts, they also suggest vulnerability.
Yeah.
Maybe even like a conflict between those selves.
And then there's like the stormy sky in the background.
Oh, yeah. Adding to that sense of turmoil.
Yeah.
Uncertainty.
Yeah, because her life was not easy.
It was full of challenges, contradictions.
And she didn't shy away from that.
No, she embraced it.
In her work.
Yeah.
Like the broken column.
Oh, the broken column.
I mean, talk about
That's a powerful image.
visceral. Yeah.
Seeing her body split open, held together by that medical corset.
Yeah.
Her spine exposed.
But even though she's like literally broken, open.
She's looking right at you.
Yeah, she's looking right at the viewer.
At defiant gaze.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to her resilience.
Like, you're not going to break me.
Yeah, I'm still here.
And that landscape behind her, it's so barren.
Desolate.
Yeah.
It's like a visual representation of that emotional isolation.
But there's that little bit of blue sky.
Oh, yeah, that sliver of hope.
Yeah.
You know, like even in the darkest times.
Yeah.
There's always a possibility of healing.
Okay, there's one more I got to ask you about. The wounded deer.
Oh, the wounded deer.
That's always seen.
So haunting.
Yeah. So symbolic.
It is. And it draws on so many different traditions, like
Yeah.
indigenous mythology, Christian iconography, the deer, right? It often represents gentleness, innocence.
Vulnerability.
Yes, vulnerability.
She's the deer.
Yeah, she's depicted as this deer pierced by arrows.
In the forest.
Yeah.
And then there's that broken branch.
Oh, that broken branch in the foreground.
I always thought that was like, you know, her broken dreams or
fragility of life.
Yeah, exactly.
How our plans can be so easily shattered.
But even though the deer's wounded,
right,
it's still looking right at you.
That direct gaze, that strength.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about Freedomania.
Oh, Freedomania.
Because it's kind of crazy.
It's everywhere.
How her image has become.
T-shirts, tote bags, tequila bottles.
Yeah, like you can't...
You name it, it's got Frida on it.
Escape her.
Yeah.
But why do you think?
I think it speaks to the power of her story.
Yeah.
And her art.
She's become like a symbol.
Yeah, of female empowerment.
Yeah.
Cultural pride, artistic freedom.
But it's also kind of like...
But there's a downside, too.
Yeah. I mean, are we just like...
Are we oversimplifying her?
Commercializing?
Reducing her to a set of images, slogans?
Yeah, like she probably would have never worn a Frida Kahlo t-shirt.
Probably not.
You know what I mean?
Right, and we have to remember...
But she was a real person.
Yeah, a complex person who dealt with real issues. Her art wasn't just about aesthetics. It was about making a statement.
So how do we
engage with her legacy?
Yeah, how do we make sure
in a meaningful way
that we're not just like buying into the hype?
I think this starts with looking deeper beyond the surface.
Yeah.
Really paying attention to those details in her paintings.
Okay.
Like how she uses color, composition to convey emotion.
Yeah, those little details.
Subtle things.
And don't be afraid to like do some research. Like learn about her life.
Yeah.
The time period.
Context.
It all matters.
Because there's no one right way.
No.
To interpret her work.
Art is subjective.
Yeah.
What speaks to you might not speak to me.
Yeah, the important thing is to just like...
approach it with an open mind.
Yeah.
And willingness to learn.
And remember that like she was a real person with like a fascinating story.
A real story, yeah.
Who challenged norms, embraced her pain, created incredible art.
And that's something...
and continues to inspire us.
We can all learn from.
Absolutely.
All right, so that is
that's Frida.
Great overview of some of the symbolism and themes.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. But in the next part of our deep dives, we're going to kind of like zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about like...
the bigger picture.
Yeah. Like what is her legacy?
Her impact.
And how does her work continue to resonate today?
I can't wait.
So stay tuned. So we've been talking all about Frida Kahlo.
Yes, Frida.
And, you know, in the last part, we were talking about how the Chicano movement really embraced her as like this symbol of, you know, cultural pride and resistance.
Yeah.
But it seems like it wasn't just the Chicano community.
No.
Like, her work has really resonated with a
Yeah.
lot of people who have been marginalized.
Right. The LGBTQ plus community, feminists, people with disabilities.
Yeah.
They've all found something in her work.
Why do you think that is? What is it about her that speaks to them?
Well, I mean, she was a woman who challenged gender norms, embraced her bisexuality,
Yeah.
celebrated her indigenous heritage,
Right.
and she did it all.
In a time when that was not.
In a time and place where those things were not accepted.
Yeah. And she didn't shy away from, like,
Her
pain or.
her vulnerability.
Yeah.
She put it all out there.
So she was just, like, unapologetically herself.
Exactly.
And I think that.
And people connect with that.
Yeah. People who have struggled can see themselves
Absolutely.
in her.
She gives them a voice.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because, like, she's this icon now,
Mm-hmm.
but she wasn't always so widely embraced.
That's true.
Like, when she was alive.
Yeah, I mean, she was overshadowed by Diego a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And some critics just dismissed her work as being too personal.
Really?
Too focused on her own suffering.
Isn't that funny how, like, the things that we love about her now are the things that people.
Back then, they didn't get it.
Yeah. They were like,
It was too much for them.
but times have changed.
They have. Our perspectives have shifted.
And now we're like.
We're more open to these diverse voices
Yeah.
and experiences.
And I think that openness has really allowed her art to
flourish.
Yeah, to reach a wider audience.
Like a global audience.
But like we said before, there's always that danger
of Fridomania.
Yeah.
Of oversimplifying her legacy.
So how do we, as viewers,
Yeah.
like, how do we move beyond that?
I think it starts with really looking closely at her paintings.
Like, really looking.
Paying attention to the details, the symbolism,
Yeah.
the way she uses color and composition.
Yeah.
It's all intentional.
So don't just, like, glance at it and be like,
Right.
oh, that's pretty. Like,
Take your time.
yeah, take the time.
Sit with it.
And do some research.
Learn about her life, the context.
Because there's no one right way
There's no one answer.
to understand her.
Yeah.
It's all.
It's up to you. The viewer brings their own experience.
Yeah, the important thing is just to have an open mind.
Be open. Be willing to learn.
And remember that she was a real person.
Yes, a complex, fascinating woman.
Yeah, with a real story to tell.
Who defied expectations and created incredible art.
And I think that's what makes her so enduring.
Absolutely.
That's why we're still talking about her today.
Her legacy lives on.
All right, so that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Frida Kahlo.
What a journey.
Yeah, it's been amazing talking with you about this.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope this has inspired you to learn more about Frida.
Yeah, go explore her work.
And maybe even create some art of your own.
Embrace your own Frida.
Yeah, find your inner Frida.
Exactly.
Tell us what you think about this episode. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.